This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on context, and by gosh, try to help each other understand.
Dungeon Crawler Carl's audiobook is back in the bestseller lists, and Morton reveals the tech magic that makes it so good. Plus, Nintendo switches up its specs. What do they mean?
I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Jenn Cutter.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. All right, Nintendo released some tech specs for the Switch 2. Not every single one you might want, but a lot of them. Let's run through them. The CPU is, in fact, a custom NVIDIA T239 that uses the ARM Cortex-A78C design. For those who follow that sort of thing, that might be meaningful. It's a max clock speed of 1.7 gigahertz, higher than a lot of people thought it would be. That's probably a theoretical max, maybe not what developers are getting all the time. It uses NVIDIA's Ampere architecture for the GPU. If you count CUDA cores, 1,536 are confirmed. Clock speed of 561 megahertz when running in handheld mode, 1,007 megahertz when docked. Basically, what all that means is you got a small consumer GPU in there. The Nintendo SDK also fully supports NVIDIA DLSS. That gives you upscaling, equivalent to performance, balance, and quality modes for PC. And it can support Ampere's ray tracing at what they say is 10 gigarays per second. If you don't really follow ray tracing, you may not have heard gigaray before. It was kind of a new one for me recently. 20 gigarays when docked, so more ray tracing when docked. We haven't seen a lot of ray tracing in any of the games yet, but it means they could show up. Of the 12 gigabytes of RAM that we knew were in there, 3 is used by the system. That leaves a nice 9 gigabytes of RAM for the developers to put into your games. That's a big upgrade from the 3.2 of the 4 that was available for the Switch 1. One fully custom element is the file decompression engine, which can handle file decompression out of storage. That's going to speed up unpacking your downloadable content. Nintendo provides a game chat testing tool that simulates latency and L3 cache misses that the chat incurs. What that means to us is game chat really could impact your game performance, so keep an eye on that. The multi-touch screen is similar to the one in the Switch 1. One note that Eurogamer points out is that VRR, variable refresh rate, is only supported in the built-in screen, not when you output by HDMI to the external screen. VRR matches the display's refresh rate to the video source. That reduces screen tearing and stuttering. So apparently the HDMI spec they're implementing doesn't support the VRR, so that you're only going to get it when you're looking at the main screen. Well, I got one little other tidbit we're going to get to in a minute, but let's stop right there, Jen. These specs are not shocking. They're not super surprising necessarily. It really, to me, kind of confirms that the Switch 2 is an incremental iteration on the Switch 1.
Yes. And for those of us who've been Nintendo players for a long time, we're very glad that it is incremental in a direction that is not as silly as, say, the Wii U.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Switch 2 is going to have a longer shelf life and / TV life and traveling in your hands life.
Yeah. And do any of these specs raise an eyebrow even for you? Or do you just look at that and say, like, these are reasonable, expected kinds of things I would want to see in the development of the handheld?
I am so excited about the file decompression engine, which sounds like a really silly, nerdy thing. But as any Sony player knows, it's the download from the Sony store. Totally fine. Normal. Yeah. Then you have the copying stage. And that takes forever because it basically like takes your new bit and then adds it to the entire game and then like reinstalls the entire game. And you are there for hours. I went to go play a game with my brother over the weekend, and like before I got in the car, I was like, "Okay, dude, you gotta boot the PS4 right now. You gotta start the copy right now." And he's like, "I'm out. We'll do it later." So then we got there, ordered dinner, and 2 hours later, we finally were playing a game. Yeah. It just takes forever. So this, I'm excited. I still think the launch servers are going to be kind of nuts, and when I get my launch unit, we'll find out together. Yeah. But yes, so that's a good start, and the game chat Ooh, that sounds like it's going to be rough for developers. Now, especially the early going, like we know as the system gets better, as devs get better using the system, I should say, that could be less of a problem. But when you're doing a gigantic new kind of game like Mario Kart World at launch, like I'm going to assume Nintendo has the most practice with getting this stuff right, but that is going to be the big test and benchmark for future developers using game chat.
Yeah, I think those are both important points for people to know. Like, hey, your server may be swamped, but hopefully once you get it onto your device, it should unpack pretty fast, which would be nice. And then, yeah, beware of that game chat. We'll see how it goes. One slightly related note, a press release about movies that will come to Peacock after their premiere in theaters next year originally included a reference to a movie called Super Mario World. That reference has since been removed, but it sounds like that might be the name of the next Mario movie, which is expected April 3rd, 2026.
Oh my gosh, what a shock that they went for the obvious name. It will be funny if they do change it by that point.
I don't know if this is a spoiler, but they definitely teased Yoshi at the end of the last Mario movie, so it would make sense that it would be called that, right?
Wow, if they wanted to minorly switch it up, the sequel to Super Mario World was Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
That could be the next movie after that.
Exactly. They got a lot of names to go for, though. If they name a movie Mario 64, that's just bold.
That could be the 64th movie if they get that far.
They'll get there. DTNS is made possible by you, the listener, thanks to Chris Allen, Mark Gibson, Reed Fischler, and our new patron, Shane.
Hey, woo-hoo! Shane! There's more we need to know today. Let's get to the briefs.
The European Vulnerability Database, or EUVD, is now fully operational, offering a platform to monitor critical and actively exploited security flaws. The European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, announced the project in June 2024, and it rolled out a limited access beta last month when there were concerns about the U.S. funding of the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, or CVE program. The EUVD will publish known vulnerabilities with the CVE number and its own EUVD number. The EUVD is updated in near real time and highlights critical and exploited vulnerabilities at the top of its site.
That is good. I like that we have redundancy in these databases. I'm hopeful that the CVE system will just remain. There was a little bit of a scare. Seems like it's been taken care of, but I know a lot of people are like, you know what? I don't know if I trust it anymore. So having another way to track these, probably a good idea for now. Hopefully we don't end up with a problem of having multi-platforms, but it sounds like the EUVD is trying to support CVE and be consistent with it. So that's good. This is also just easier to use. The CVE database isn't even available on the website anymore. They're updating it by RSS and all these other ways. So having an easier way to get to these is a good thing too.
Yeah, I'm really happy that they're actually showing both numbers linked. That makes IT jobs so much easier to have these things in one space.
Time for a China tech news roundup. As expected, the U.S. Department of Commerce rescinded the artificial intelligence rule before it went into effect. I had actually marked this on my calendar because the rule had been implemented by the previous administration like a couple of days before the inauguration. I'm like, this isn't going to last. It would have increased limits on exports of U.S.-made chips. The new administration says it'll implement its own rules. So in the meantime, it issued guidance that companies should not use Huawei's Ascend AI chips, as the administration believes they violate U.S. export laws. But other rules on restrictions of chip exports are yet to come. Inside China, Xiaomi's new EV orders fell 55% on the month after a bunch of different things. There was a fatal accident involving a Xiaomi SU7 model, widespread dissatisfaction about its smart driving features. There are also allegations of false advertising related to the design of an optional carbon fiber hood. So a public relations nightmare right now for Xiaomi's EVs. And finally, Foxconn posted strong Q1 profit, but warned of uncertainty for the rest of the year. And Tencent reported a 13% revenue jump as the Chinese gaming sector bounces back after years of strong regulation.
All right. Well, it's good to know about the Department of Commerce changing the rule, but that the existing chip export rules are still in effect, yeah?
Yeah, the ones that were implemented by the previous administration on NVIDIA and what they can export to China, all of that stays the same. They were just going to change it. If you remember, they were going to change it into tiers where certain countries didn't need a license. And then some other countries needed a provisional license. And then other countries were just not going to get a license. And that was China and Iran and all of those. This scraps that. That entire system has gone out of the way.
ChatGPT's deep research function can now connect directly to Microsoft's OneDrive and SharePoint services if you want to use it on your own documents in its research. It does not work with OneDrive's consumer accounts, though, and is not available in the European Economic Area, Switzerland, or the UK.
I mean, it's not like you can't take stuff out of your drive and then upload them to ChatGPT, but it's a little more cumbersome. So this is nice, especially if you're in an enterprise situation, to be able to just point it at, your annual reports or whatever that you wanted to work on. Warner Brothers Discovery will change the name of its streaming service Max to HBO Max this summer. Yes, it was called HBO Max until 2 years ago. The full lineage is HBO Go, and HBO Now became HBO Max, which became Max, which will become once again HBO Max. In other streaming deja vu news, Warner announced that this autumn it will bring back a streaming CNN service. Yes, it barely launched one called CNN Plus right before Warner Brothers and Discovery merged and then quickly canceled it. This latest attempt will simply be called CNN and include live channels, news feeds, exclusive programming, and other content, including CNN.com subscription articles.
You know when you're double checking dates in your RSS feed to make sure something ancient does not get bumped again?
You're like, wait a minute, is this that from 2018 story? Yeah, no, I know what you mean. A lot of people are clowning on CNN for trying streaming again. This makes way more sense than CNN Plus did. CNN Plus was trying to be kind of like a Fox Nation thing, and I'm not sure CNN had the kind of fan base that would support that. Whereas this feels more like what ESPN is doing. We mentioned yesterday that ESPN is going to have a streaming only service of all its content available, and it's called ESPN. This is tied into CNN.com's subscription. So if you subscribe to CNN's print subscription, basically for its website, this is going to include that, and it's just called CNN. It's basically them saying, hey, if you want just the news and not the part of CNN that's included in HBO Max, you can get that. You can subscribe and get the whole fire hose. Whereas CNN Plus was some weird subsection. It didn't make any sense to me.
There's a lot going on, and there's always kind of invisible quotes around things like exclusive programming. It's like, okay, how hard are they going to go on that? They may not find a good ROI, but I don't blame them for ditching the plus moniker because, some names are just cursed and you have to leave them alone.
Yeah. And CNN Plus was implying like this is extra stuff, whereas this is saying you get everything. You get all the CNN. We're not going to try to keep you away from other stuff.
TikTok announced new accessibility tools on Wednesday. Creators will have the option to let generators create the alt text that describes images for screen readers. Instagram has offered this since 2018. A new high contrast mode will increase the foreground color of text and icons, and TikTok will also now honor a device's bold text setting.
Another announcement. And in our email, we'll understand why we have another announcement in the accessibility space. Uber announced a new option called Route Share that is 50% cheaper than UberX, but only available during weekday commuting hours. And the rides will only pick you up every 20 minutes at fixed pickup points on busy corridors. This is a bus. It's basically a bus. This is a bus system, except it's run by cars, because you get picked up by cars instead of a bus. But they're describing a bus. Anyway, Uber is launching a bus. It's available in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Philadelphia, Dallas, Boston, and Baltimore, with more cities to come.
Display analyst Ross Young notes that at the SID Business Conference, OTI Lumiotics said that it expects phones with under-panel Face ID using its materials will be available for sale in 2026. This goes along with rumors that Apple will offer a phone with under-panel Face ID.
Yeah. This seems like good confirmation, because this is the kind of technology that Apple would need to use to make that happen. Apparently, the hang up was getting the infrared sensors to punch through the screen without degrading the screen. Mm-hmm. And they were able to figure out how to turn off just the right number of pixels so that you don't notice a change in the screen, but the infrared can get through. The headlines out there are that Microsoft extended the deadline for support of Microsoft 365 on Windows 10. ZDNet's EdBot has been doing the Lord's work, has an article trying to explain why this is not a change, and in Ed's opinion, not even really a story. So please read Ed's excellent explanation for the details of this. The short version is this: support for Windows 10 will end on October 14th, 2025. The confusion came when this week Microsoft published documentation that says the following: Microsoft will continue providing security updates for Microsoft 365 apps on Windows 10 for 3 years after Windows 10 reaches end of support. These updates will be delivered through the standard update channels ending on October 10th, 2028. So what gives? Why is Forbes calling this a pivot? Is it a change? No, EdBot points out the updates will come. They were always going to come, but you won't get support. So yes, you get the security update, but if you have a problem with it and you call support, they're going to be like, you're on Windows 10, it's out of support. You may well then ask, why would they do the updates then if they're not going to support them? Because Microsoft offers extended support to enterprise customers who pay them. So they're making the updates for them, but it would be silly to just not offer them to anyone, but they're not going to continue to do technical support for Windows 10 after October 14th.
Yeah, a lot of... I don't want to call them legacy institutions because your bank is not a legacy, but also runs on legacy hardware. I used to work in DevTank for a Canadian bank. And yeah, back in those days, there were a lot of Windows 98 SE things that just had so much custom stuff built on them that it took a decade to get off them to something that was equally stable, which is not something you hear about Windows 98. But yeah, no, it makes sense that these updates are coming. I am one of those people who will be paying for the extended Windows 10 coverage because I do not have my main PC capable of running 11. And then I will have to figure out what I will do when the, like, it's nice that Windows 365, Microsoft 365 will keep going, but eventually I'm going to have to deal with not having a secure Windows 10.
Yeah. Or be able to, or you might need a new computer at some point.
I'm very close to needing a new computer.
Yeah. Then the problem goes away.
8 Sleep launched its new Pod 5 sleep system, which includes a cover, a hub, a blanket, and a base you need to supply the mattress and frame. The cover and blanket can cool you down or heat you up from 55 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The hub holds the water that it pumps into the blankets for this, as well as the Wi-Fi connection. The base can vibrate and elevate your head when it detects snoring, and it has a built-in speaker for playing relaxing sounds if you want. The software is trained on 10 million hours of sleep data and learns from your own sleep patterns, monitors your heart and respiratory rates while you sleep through it in the sensors in the cover. It is available now starting at $2,849.
So you're not getting the bed. That's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of money, but it does a lot. Like it's monitoring. It's not just monitoring your sleep. It's monitoring your vitals, basically.
Yeah, if you want a really expensive sleep watch without wearing the watch, they've got you covered.
Yeah, you can sleep inside the watch. This is the very expensive solution for my problem, which is I don't like the idea of wearing a watch while I sleep or anything on my wrist while I sleep. Just bugs me. This would be much better. I'm not sure I want to do it though. Also, I really want to make the joke that in this particular setup, the internet is a series of tubes because the Wi-Fi and the water thing are all in one device. Those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper.
Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 7, The Inevitable Ruin, reached the New York Times audiobook bestseller list a few months ago, and this month the first audiobook is back in the top 10. The book is produced by an indie studio called Sound Booth Theater, so Tom caught up with Aaron Morton from Sound Booth Theater to find out how they do it.
Aaron, thanks for talking with me today, man.
Thank you, Tom. Glad to be here.
So I know a lot of folks in our audience are probably familiar with Dungeon Crawler Carl, maybe less familiar with Sound Booth Theater, but real quickly, like, what do you guys do and what kinds of audiobooks do you produce?
Yeah, we do two main things at Sound Booth Theater. We do produce audiobooks in the traditional sense. And, the Dungeon Crawler Carl series is the biggest series that we're attached to, with multiple of those titles going bestseller. And the company is sort of headed up by its lead narrator, Jeff Hayes. He started the company years ago with the idea of doing the second thing we do, which is cinematic audio. There are a few companies doing different versions of this, and ours is called cinematic, and it's basically a full cast of actors, a full engineered sound environment and sound effects, plus an original score. So we kind of take it on a spectrum from classic audiobook with one or two narrators all the way to you're listening to a movie.
Yeah. And with the cinematic experience, it's a full cast versus a single narrator, right?
Yeah. In some cases, you'll still have a voice actor doing maybe more than one, but we will go all the way up to like 30 different actors in a production for some of our bigger stuff, like DCC, for instance.
Yeah. You'd be forgiven if you listen to the audiobook of DCC and think it's a full cast, because Jeff Hayes is amazing at the different voices.
He is. We get that all the time.
Yeah.
We ask people if they've heard the cinematic, and they're like, I think so. There's got to be like, well, let's clarify.
Yeah. So how do you distribute? Because I know you have the Audible productions that are the single narrator ones, like we were talking about. How do the cinematic versions get out there?
Right. So that's another thing that's sort of split in half. Usually our classic audiobooks are either distributed wide or to Audible exclusive. But our cinematics are generally put over in our own platform. And it actually just got an update. You can download the app everywhere now. It's just called Sound Booth, and it's actually its own separate thing. And it's an audio streaming app that we developed specifically to cater to these cinematic audiobooks, but also classic audio, and we're even opening it up to other publishers. So we sort of have this second place where the more unconventional stuff and beyond can all live on a platform that we can kind of control.
Yeah. It feels like it would be difficult to get people to do that when they probably already have Audible or something. But you guys have an amazing community across Reddit and Discord and all kinds of things. Is that sort of part of the secret sauce?
I think that we're extremely fortunate to have basically the talent of Jeff Hayes and the books that we have partnered with and like the world that he has built and we have built on top of, because there's a big fandom behind that. There's just a lot of people who are very, very passionate about this genre, which we have a corner in, as well as the performances of not just Jeff Hayes, but also Annie Ellicott, Justin Thomas James, and the other narrators and voice actors we work with all the time.
So let's get into a little bit before we wrap up about how this is done. Because I know a lot of people, if they're familiar with the cinematic or they're starting to get an idea, are going to wonder like, okay, how do you coordinate that? If you've got a full cast and you've got sound effects, like what kind of technology goes into the actual recording and production of these?
That's my favorite part. I'm the director of music and marketing development. So I work on the marketing side, but my big role in the company is looking after music, which is a huge part of the cinematic production. And it also means that I've got eyeballs on the middle of the process. Basically, we go through and start a set in a software called Ableton Live with the main narrator, the lead of the project. Then it goes through a process of the other voice actors getting that file and adding their pieces in it. Then
they can react to the main narrator then?
Yeah, basically it's all, there's a single thread from beginning to end for the most part, where everything is getting stacked on top. So it starts with the base narration and the lead, and then the other voices are added. And then it goes to, there's a proofing process, where we're double checking, making sure every line is right and all that stuff. And then it's going into sound and music. The sound engineer team led by Ahmed Mahmoud is this big team of people that go in and like, if you look in the project, it is this absurd number of little boxes of files. And like as a quick example, in a fight battle scene, one explosion sound event will actually be made up of like 8 different clips. There will be an impact clip. There will be a debris clip. There will be all these different things. And then all of that is pushed through with the soundtrack. I will take sections of the story that really need that emotional impact. I will actually score in a totally different software and just export a wave that lines up. And then the engineering team goes through a mix and master process. And then we polish it up. We just make sure everything sounds right. You can hear the narration on top of all the noise, and everything makes sense. Like, well, there was a bump, but then there wasn't anything else. Let's get that actor to come back in and just add a grunt.
Yeah.
Those kind of little things.
That's great. What do you use to compose your music in then?
I work in Logic Pro.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a classic.
Lots of
podcasters use it too.
I've been using it since 2009, and I love it.
And then do you have the actors come into a studio, or are they recording in their own studios? Like, how does the hardware part of that work?
A lot of sound booth theater is remote. We have a couple, like there's 2 of us in Tulsa. There's a few of us in Kansas City, and Kansas City is where Jeff Hayes and the headquarters is. But most of us are recording remotely from all over the country. We're using like Teams and stuff and downloading the entire file from the other person across the country, uploading, zipping, and putting it back in.
Yeah.
The next person's picking it up.
That's complex because you have to make sure that everybody's got decent equipment, and a quiet space and all of that. How hard is that to manage?
It's sort of case by case because, if it sounds good, it sounds good. So in some cases, a lot of the voice actors have a professional isolation booth, like a standalone. It looks almost like a glass TARDIS in somebody's house. Like it's just a little phone booth of treatment. And they will step in there and close. It isolates and it creates a consistent quality. I have a kind of a converted closet in my music studio where I've done some voice work as well. And so since I've like dialed in the treatment in that room, it's really just about making sure that each person who's sending in their work is always sending in the same quality, because the engineers can then massage that into being consistent with the rest. What would be a problem is if somebody was recording in one place one week and then in another. Like that's where we would run into issues.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. And I know people listening are going to want to know, like, equipment wise, is there a microphone of choice? Does everybody have different brands? Like, is there anything consistent across the hardware? There
are some pieces of equipment consistent, and I don't want to give away too many secrets, but I'll tell you some of my favorites. I actually have, my space is very, very killed audio wise. So the highs have nowhere to go. And so I'm using AKG C414s, which are very bright microphones. And I go through an Apollo X4 interface into a Mac for Logic Pro. One thing that I'll say from producing audio is, like, the first thing is the room you're recording in. Like, get a bookshelf, get some pillows and stuff. And when you can, get some proper treatment, not just egg crate, but like proper panels that have the right depth of material to really take out some of the extra sound. So like that's the first secret. Like, no great microphone is going to fix a bad room.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Aaron, thanks so much for talking with us about this today. If people want to find out more about Sound Booth, get the app and all of that, where should they go?
Soundbooththeater.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter. We're always sending out info on upcoming productions. You can follow us at our socials as well, at Sound Booth Theater.
Fantastic. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
What would you like to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/dailytechnewsshow.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Josh Grisdale is helping us understand.
Yes, we made some comments that maybe Apple was making its announcements about accessibility at the same time as Google was making its Android announcements. And Josh wrote in and said the timing of the accessibility announcements had nothing to do with trying to compete with Google announcements, but instead Global Accessibility Awareness Day, GAAD. You can find details at accessibility.day. It happens every May, and Apple usually announces in accordance. Since GAD started in 2021, their announcement has been either Tuesday or Wednesday of the week. And he gave me a chart of every day they've been announced from 2021 through 2025. Josh says, not saying there's no strategy in press releases, but more than half have been on Tuesdays the week of GAD. So yeah, maybe not. Maybe this was Apple just playing along. And also, thanks for making us aware of Accessibility Day, which is tomorrow, Thursday, May 15th. So that's important to know as well. Thanks, Josh.
What are you thinking about? Got some insight into a story? Share it with us at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Big thanks to Aaron Morton from Sound Booth Theater for talking with us. Big thanks to Josh Grisdale for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons, patreon.com/DTNS. And don't forget, I'm doing a workshop in Austin, Texas, the weekend of June 27th. There's still a couple slots left if you're interested. Find out more at bestnewsever.com.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.